Well, let's get straight to the top story. In a major blow to the government and the telecom sector, the Supreme Court today cancelled more than 120 telecom licenses that were issued in 2008 under then Minister A. Raja. While describing the allotments as illegal and arbitrary, the court blamed A. Raja squarely, saying he did not consult the finance minister and ignored the Prime Minister's advice for transparency. The top court refused to order a CBI probe into Mr. Chidambaram's role, leaving that to the trial court. The trial court order is expected this Saturday.
Minutes after the Supreme Court order, the media crowding one of the key movers behind the 2G case. The order was far-reaching for the government, for India Inc., for ordinary people.
Key points in today's judgments are: now, trial court will decide whether Home Minister P. Chidambaram's role in the 2G scam will have to be probed by the CBI or not. Secondly, on cancellation of licenses, 4 months' time has been given for auctioning. Thirdly, now CBI will send its status reports to the Central Vigilance Commission, who will study and examine and submit to the Supreme Court.
On Chidambaram and Raja, the court said that Raja was bound to involve the Finance Ministry on pricing, but Raja was conscious that the Finance Secretary objected to the 2001 rates being used in 2007. So he didn't consult either the then Finance Minister Chidambaram or his officials. The court demolished the first-come, first-served policy followed by Raja, which the rest of the government was unable to stop. The order says the principle of first-come, first-serve is fundamentally flawed and it has inherently dangerous implications. Any person who has access to the corridors of power is likely to be awarded. Indicting Raja, the court says it's clear that Raja wanted to favour some companies at the cost of the public exchequer.
The Supreme Court, I believe, has found that it was discriminatory per se. If that be the case, then of course the policy was initiated by the NDA government.
But the order clarifies that though Raja followed existing policy, the licenses existing before his time won't be cancelled, as that was not part of the petition and their legality was not under question. Now the question is, since those were also on the first-come, first-served basis, today held to be fundamentally flawed, will they face cancellation too? With Neha Khanna and Arunachalam Vaidyanathan in Delhi, Anusya Mathur for NDTV.
Well, as expected, there has been a major political slugfest over this entire verdict today. The government insisting that this is not an indictment of the UPA, the BJP demanding answers from the PM and Sonia Gandhi.
The Supreme Court clearly, and I will emphasize clearly, says that the Finance Ministry's advice was not followed. And the same thing in terms of the Prime Minister's office, that clearly the then minister did not follow the good advice.
It can't be that the people who control the UPA or the Congress party have no answering to do in these matters. Therefore, I think there is a lot of answering the UPA chairperson is to do, the Congress party is to do, the Prime Minister's office is to do.
Well, as we look at that 2G setback for the government, has the government's credibility been shattered by this verdict today? Do tell us what you think. Clearly, the UPA has a completely different spin on it, but that is the question that we're asking tonight. Joining us on the program this evening, the national spokesperson of the Congress party, Dr. Abhishek Singhvi, the national spokesperson of the BJP, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, the National Secretary of the CPI, Mr. D. Raja, is with us. Also, Mr. Mukul Rohtkey, who's the counsel for Swan Telecom, one of the companies that has been affected by today's order. We have Paranjoy Guha Thakurta, a senior journalist and a petitioner in this case, and Vinod Sharma, who's now one of our favorite editors on this show. He's back with us, the political editor of the Hindustan Times. Dr. Abhishek Singhvi, let me ask you first. How does the government think today that this verdict is not an indictment of the government when an entire decision that was taken by the UPA government has been scrapped? 122 licenses have been scrapped in a decision that was taken by your government. How is this not an embarrassment for the government?
Several reasons, Diti. Just one sentence caveat at the beginning. I must disclose that I was counsel for two entities, Vodafone and Aircel, who perhaps are the only 2 or 3 entities who have not been indicted and their licenses have not been cancelled because they were part of the 2006 applications, not the 2008 ones. But that's just by way of clarification and voluntary disclosure. Now, why does the UPA say that this is not an indictment? I am always amused nowadays, Nidhi, by the constant use of the word indictment, setback, embarrassment on legal judgments. Reason number one, the BJP has desperately tried over the last 1 year to get a sentence, a word, a whisper, a comment from the Supreme Court about Mr. Chidambaram, holding him responsibly, morally, legally, etc., and ask for his resignation. They have tried it in the Supreme Court. Incidentally, Dr. Swamy, who is the petitioner, has publicly proclaimed that he is about to join the BJP. They have tried to disrupt Parliament on that issue. What have they got? In the order today and in the order on 31st of January, not a word, merely a transfer of those rights of Mr. Swamy is sent to the trial court. Number two reason, they've tried desperately to sensationalize the issue about the Prime Minister. Prime Minister is wrong, Prime Minister is morally culpable, Prime Minister must resign, Prime Minister must do that and this. On the 31st of January sanction judgment, the court has categorically said that the Prime Minister is not at fault. On today's judgment, the court has again said that the Prime Minister is not at fault or has not found anything against the Prime Minister. The BJP has failed there again to sensationalize. Reason number three, Nidhi, very quickly. Yes, to the extent that we have continued the FCFS, namely the first come first serve policy, you can say that it's a setback. But it is a much bigger setback and a much bigger embarrassment, it should be at least, to those who care to be logical and to look at the judgment. Because the first come first serve, which has been held by the court to be conceptually a wrong policy, was started, invented, implemented, continued for more than 4 or 5 years from 2001 and before till 2004 by the BJP. Yes, we have continued it thereafter without change. But to suggest that because the FCFS policy has been held to be conceptually wrong, we are indicted or culpable, well then, we should at least be a lesser indictment than a complete indictment of those who invented that policy.
No, but one second.
There are several
Let me
other
ask
reasons.
you. I'll get into the several other reasons with you. You're saying that the court has not directly criticized the Prime Minister or Mr. Chidambaram in any way, which is correct. But it has blamed squarely the then Telecom Minister, Mr. A. Raja, who was in your government. Who was he accountable to?
Absolutely.
He was accountable at the very least to the Prime Minister. He was in the cabinet. He was the UPA's Telecom Minister. So then isn't that an embarrassment for the government?
I'm glad you asked that question. The court, if you kindly read the judgment, and I can tell you the paragraphs, has made a sharp distinction between, if I may say it, the alleged shenanigans of Mr. Raja, for which Mr. Raja is today an accused. I don't want to prejudice his trial. He may or may not be acquitted or convicted. But today, and they've given a list of 10 things he did which show a favoritism, an intent to favor. And they have then, after that and before that, drawn a sharp distinction between the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister on the one hand and Mr. Raja on the other. Certainly, Nidhi, if there is a wrong or a deviant element of an individual on actions which he has gone wrong on, then he will be punished both civilly, because there are clear strictures against Mr. Raja in the judgment on the civil side, and on the criminal side, clearly he's suffering for the last 9-10 months and his trial is continuing. But that is a very sharp distinction from why the court chose not to, deliberately and categorically, indict others. For example, the Finance Minister, then Finance Minister, now Home Minister, his advice was not followed, is what the court says. The Prime Minister was not kept in the loop. Therefore, you have to draw the distinction. And today the entire attempt of the BJP is to slur over, to write just, casually go over this thing. Avoid the logic of it, avoid the legality of it, go into a broadside on political allegations.
Okay.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone. Fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. NDTV.com/apps.